in Boston that said, Renee, people, you know, and I go back to like saying I'm a Yankee thing, but she said to me, and this was early 90s, she said, Renee, I've traveled a lot to Texas and they do not accept Northerners. And she was like, you might have a really hard time starting a business there because they don't like outsiders. And I was like, really? And so I kind of went to an area, I researched and went to an area that was like a little more transient, because I thought, oh, no one's going to, support my business if they find out where I live, where I used to live. And I mean, that couldn't be farther from the truth, but that's what she told me. And, but yeah, I basically I subscribed. My research was subscribing to the Dallas Morning News. So I would get I was living in Boston. I would get the newspaper every day. And then just, cause I didn't even know the area, right? Like, where's the area? Where should I open? What's it all like? And then, and then working with a realtor, I went down several times and worked closely with a realtor who ended up becoming, and still is a client, customer of ours to this day. And so she guided me a lot, and she was a native Texan. So she kind of said, no, Renee, you'll be just fine. And I'm like, but do I have to wear cowboy boots all the time? Or and I was just like, I don't know. I had, we all have a perception of what Texas is like from like the TV show Dallas. Right. And anyway, but yeah, just try to learn as much as I could. But at some point you just need to take a leap of faith and cross your fingers, take a big deep breath, and hope it all works. You
said something interesting that I think is an important part of making a transition, whatever that looks like. I did the same thing when I moved to Montana, is I subscribed to things in Montana, like you suggested, the Dallas newspaper, right? You were still in Boston, but you're reading and you're starting to live that life through what you were reading. I did the same with Montana. I started looking at homes 2 years before we moved here, looking at the weather, and all these things. And in my mind, I started making the transition. When I arrived here, I felt very comfortable and I knew what I was in for. And I would imagine it was similar for you. Yeah, I did. Right. I did as much research as I could to understand the lay of the land and to make sure it was going to be a right fit. But yeah, you never know everything until you're actually in it. Right. So, but it worked out. And I've been in Texas for 24 years now, and I can't ever imagine leaving Texas. It's such a great state. Oh, I love that. I want to ask you about just the business that you're in itself. I had somebody on the show last year who's become a good friend. His name is Danny Dreyer. He owns Dixon flannel shirts. And when you look at a marketplace and you go, do we really need another flannel shirt? And he attacked it. I mean, he did over $20 million in sales last year after 6 years of being in business. I was in the vodka business and the tequila business, and did we really need another one? No, but we made it succeed, because once you create a niche within that segment, you can really make a name for yourself and see success. When I look at skincare, I think about all those brands when I walk through the Nordstroms or the, the needless markup, like, wow, how do you compete with that? And so my question is, you had the confidence to start your own skincare business, but how did you feel about the competition and how you would make your mark? Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, so on one hand, yes, there's a lot of competition, but guess what? Everybody has skin, right? Yeah, like I'm not, true. It's, I mean, there's really no one that wouldn't benefit from using skincare products. So that makes it nice. But I think the main thing is you have to have a unique position, right? So it's all about the elevator pitch. When someone says, hey, how's your line different from someone else's? You better have a really good answer, right? And so my concept, which is a little different from a lot of people, is that I've been a practicing esthetician for 30 years. So I have that hands-on experience. So there brings a lot of credibility and trust versus, because Jim, you could start a skincare line if you wanted to, right? And people are like, okay, what does he know about it? And so there was a lot of credibility, but my years of being an esthetician has taught me that there is more to skin than dry, normal, and oily. So to this day, still, brands still kind of do the dry, normal, and oily thing, right? Like, oh, I need a moisturizer. Great. What's your skin type? Dry, normal, and oily. And they'll give you, oh, it's dry. Okay, great. You have the one for dry skin. And I learned that
I determined there were 9 different types of skin. So my line, we have 50 products that span the 9 skin types. People take a quick and easy skin type quiz on my website, and then they'll be put into one of the 9 skin types, and they get a curated, customized routine that's exclusively for their skin type. So that's kind of how, I positioned it, and we've done really well. And nobody is addressing the skin types because everyone kind of wants to be a one size fits all, because you'll sell more products. And, because some skin types are less popular because the world just doesn't have that type of skin, but you still have to have products for them. And so some products are slower movers because that skin type is a little more rare, but you still have to do it. Where a lot of brands, if something is a slow mover, they're going to take it out of the line. And so it's just the problem I was looking to solve when I created my skincare line was really allowing people to feel like they were getting personalized skincare.
I love it.
And then therefore they'd get better results because they're using something that's uniquely for them.
Well, it makes so much sense, because when I go to buy any products that are for myself, I'm looking at what's available. And it's like, well, that's sort of me, but not quite, whether it's skincare or anything else. So I love that approach. Do you have a skin line that says for Irish skin? Irish skin, keep me out of the sun.
Skin types 5 and skin type 9 are probably, you're one of those 2.
I love it. You have a unique approach to maintaining your ownership or the control of your brand. And I think that how you run your brand is so critical for longevity. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is something that I feel super passionate about, but I own 100% of my company, and I've never taken outside investment other than a loan from a bank. And I'm in, are you familiar with EO, Jim, Entrepreneurs Organization?
No, I'm not actually.
Okay. Have you ever heard of YPO?
Yes. I was a member.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So EO is like the entrepreneur's arm of YPO. Okay. So the requirements to join are different. YPO has been around for longer, but EO has been around for, I think, 30 years now. So I've been a member. I was a member of the Dallas chapter for a long time, and now I'm in the Austin chapter, but I've been a member for like 12 years or something. But, similar in YPO with, you're around a lot of people like you, right? And so you hear their stories, you hear their choices, you hear their mistakes, and you learn really quickly like what not to do and what to do. And the nature of an entrepreneur is more, bigger is better. It's never good enough. You're always striving. Okay. Yeah, I got to win, pat myself on the back for 1 second. Now I'm on to the next win. Right. We never even stop to even celebrate and appreciate what we've done. We're just like on that hamster wheel, just going. And so I have said no to a lot of opportunities in my company because I really believe that for my happiness, it's all, the reason why I became an entrepreneur was to have control and make my own choices and not have to work for somebody else. And the minute that you decide that, you want to really get big, be a household name, eventually be acquired, which is a goal for a lot of people. But when you start involving other people and you start to sell your soul, and now all of a sudden you have a boss or bosses because they're like, hey, we want our money back. We invested in you and you're not running the company right. Hey, we're going to fire you. And now you're the founder of the company and you're out of the company. And, that certainly happens a lot. And so I've just kind of, seen so many founders that started a company with, blood, sweat, and tears, give it everything they have, and then they lose control, and then they end up being miserable. And then they look back and go, geez, like if I had to do it all over again, and so when I have my, entrepreneur friends are always like, Renee, you could be bigger, you could be this, and you could be selling all these stores and, all this stuff. And I'm like, please explain to me why bigger is better. Give me a compelling argument. Our company is growing, we grow minimum 15% a year, which is awesome. I love that growth. I don't really want more growth than that. That's enough for me. But like, I'm always like, tell me why my life is going to be better, happier, if it's bigger, if my company's bigger, and nobody can give me a compelling argument. And I'm like, that's my point. Like, because you really need to be conscious of why you make the decisions you do. But a lot of people never stop to think about, hey, every choice has a consequence, good, bad, or indifferent. And people really walk themselves into bad situations and then have regrets.
You brought up some really good points, and I love that you have, because there's a lot of people that listen to this show that have an interest in starting their own business. First of all, bigger isn't always better, and that is such a great point, because you could have more than enough at the size that you are today if you really evaluated your personal choices, what's important to you in your life. That could be time with your family, and bigger will take away that time. I've been in those shoes where I took in the money to grow my business, and I thought it was the right thing to do. And I was the blood, sweat, and tears behind the company I created. And I remember, and this really hit me in the head like a bat. We were on a business trip. I was with my primary investors, and we were going to a church function, which I've born and raised in a church my whole life, and that's just part of who I am and how I structure my businesses in terms of give back philosophies and things. So we're getting ready to go in this church for the function, and the investor says, "Oh, I don't go into churches. I don't do that." And that's fine. That's that person's choice. But I realized we were so utterly black and white in our belief systems and our foundational elements. And I thought, I'm full on in bed with this person. This is a problem. Right. And sometimes these things don't flush out. But when you look at what people's motives are behind the relationship, and all of a sudden you see a black and white difference like that, it really can open your eyes. And I think a lot of people get into that situation looking at the money and the growth and the bigger's better opportunity and don't realize what it could mean in a short period of time down the road. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's a lot of people out there right now that want to be entrepreneurs, and I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity coming out of COVID to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
You talk about your core values and True North, and can you share that with our audience a little bit, what those are? And I think you've already expanded on a couple of them.
Yeah. So within my company and then in my personal life, I think core values are super important. So when you think about it in a business, core values, right? You walk into a tire shop or something and they'll have the core values printed on the wall, and you as a customer are like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, yeah, they're just trying to, tell us who they are. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people don't, I believe a lot of companies will make core values because it's good PR, it looks good or whatever. But are people really missing the boat on what core values are? And core values are a decision-making tool. And so in our company, like within our leadership, there's times that, we have a difference of opinions. I want to take a left. Somebody wants to take a right, whatever. And as we're in our weekly meetings, sometimes, great arguments on both sides, both points are valid. But sometimes when we can't make up our mind, ultimately I own 100% of the company. So ultimately it's my way or the highway, but I'm also a very open-minded leader. And so we always look at our core values, and the answer is right there, like all our answers. We're like, okay, these are our 5 core values. Okay. Oh, that makes that decision. End of story. And so we hire by our core values. We use them in all our meetings. People really understand our core values, and that is definitely our guiding light. So then in my personal life, I have my own core values too. And I've always done core values for years, but where they really came in handy was, when Florian passed away, and I'd been with someone for 22 years, and now I'm out in the world alone, and, my whole world is turned upside down. And as I kind of immerse myself back into the world, those core values were really important, because I was a grieving widow. I was weak. I was fearful. And I needed to make sure I was making right decisions for my personal life, what am I doing? How am I living my days? Who am I surrounding myself with? What kind of tribe do I want to build for myself? And so the core values, my personal core values, became really, really a guiding light as I navigated a new world for myself.
I think a lot of people miss that step when they build their business, is what their core values are. It's interesting you talk about that. I lead my business on a yellow pad. Every day I've got a list of things that I work on. It's here. You can see it because you're on Zoom.
Yeah.
But so what I do is I go down the list each day, and what I don't get done, I transfer to the next page. But the one thing that I do every single day is I transfer my values, which is on the top of the page, right?
Nice.
Because that is my guiding light of where my day should go, where my business should go, personal and everything else. So I think a lot of people do miss the values. Also I think a value is people over profit, and you'd mentioned that before in some notes. And